What is up, everybody? This is Devin Roberts, back with Young Controversy, or I guess technically here for the first time with Young Controversy on YouTube. I have been doing a podcast, if you are not already aware, on anchor.fm/podcasting for news, events, stories, and other interesting updates that I find trending. And I've decided, at the request of a few others and many loyal fans, I am going to open a YouTube channel and attempt to grow it a little bit, and ideally drive people back to my podcast where I give daily updates to you. But for now, what we're going to start with is a breakdown for the day. That's pretty much what I intend to do here on this YouTube channel, guys, is I'm going to break down some of the bigger trending topics that I can't really cover in 10 to 12 minutes on my podcast each day. Something I need to spend a little extra time on and kind of slow down and talk to you about in a more segmented process, and something that I'll cut later instead of just spewing at you for 12 minutes. So, today, one of the most interesting stories I've been talking about, and the video that I have been promising you guys all week, the Shane Dawson breakdown. If you haven't seen already, Shane Dawson, one of the better creators on YouTube, in my opinion, or at least now in my opinion, we'll get to that in a minute, I'm making an 8-part documentary series about Jake Paul. And in this documentary series, he's going into Jake Paul's life, his background, his big house, everything about him. If you don't know anything about Jake Paul, he's the biggest YouTuber out there. He does all this stuff. He's a monster, honestly, just a titan on the channel. He's a hero to most kids that are below the age of 17 nowadays, especially anyone that wants to get famous online. So, Shane Dawson is going into his giant house and into his relationship and into his life to see if it's all real, if it's all fake, how much of it is real, how much of it is fake. Is he a good person? Is he who he is on camera? Is he not? Exactly what went down, and he dives super deep into it. And I think I loved the concept and was super excited for it, because I think this is a type of person that we haven't really seen before. These YouTubers are almost they're in their own breed of human. To have millions and millions of people watching your daily move is something that we have really not seen in any real facet before this point, especially with the level of influence that they have over the younger generation. It's honestly unbelievable. There's nothing like it ever in history. And I'm really excited to get into the mind of those kind of people, or at least I was before I started. And then Shane Dawson decided to take it in a completely different direction, where he decided episode 1 almost out of the gate. And people tell me now that I'm much farther through it that Shane Dawson is a lover of clickbait, that's kind of his thing. So maybe I missed the boat coming into this one as a new fan. You guys can tell me I've kind of looked back at a little bit of his stuff since watching this, but he's a king of clickbait. But episode 1 immediately comes in and basically frames the whole episode around calling Jake Paul a sociopath. He says that using dark, scary music and pictures of guys in masks and all kinds of other theatrical nonsense, he tries to claim that Jake Paul, and by extension a lot of other YouTubers, just because of tendencies that they may have for narcissism or attention-seeking habits, might claim them as sociopaths.
It was very real. I wanted to kill him.
And I thought this was not only grotesque and really, really uncalled for, but it was a YouTube diagnosis, or at least to the public it would be. He very quickly in the episode shows that Jake Paul knows what the whole process is about. He knew about the sociopathy word being used, from what we can understand, and hasn't had a problem with it. But the issue is, and I'll start breaking this down for you. In episode 1, he begins by framing Jake Paul as a sociopath for the first portion of the video, pointing to his accolades throughout YouTube of just acting awry and going insane and burning things and destroying the Team 10 house, which, if you don't know, is a giant mansion that he bought for all his friends to live in, where they make YouTube videos together and become rich. But he winds up, through this process of breaking this down, realizing that his opinion isn't going to be the only one he can take on the matter, which I did respect. And he went to a licensed therapist and also YouTuber who helped people with other types of mental disorders, as well as these kind. Of course, she knows what she's talking about. And throughout the process, definitely showed she did. I trusted her opinions a lot as I was watching it. But throughout the process, I am watching him spend 2-3 at least episodes completely. That's about 3 hours worth of content with millions of views, mind you, framing Jake Paul as a sociopath at the top of YouTube, also claiming that 1 in 25 people are sociopaths, and then subsequently framing sociopaths as utterly monstrous people. The therapist that he went and talked to claimed that sociopaths aren't monsters quite like you believe, but that 1 in 25 people you know happens to be. So that's apparently a statistic that exists on sociopaths. The issue I have with this is he went on a complete tirade about this, turning that 1 in 25 into monsters. And the mental health community, as well as a bunch of self-proclaimed sociopaths on the internet, attacked him fervently for it. And if you don't know, and I'm going to preface this so I don't just become a jerk in the video, I think Shane Dawson's a very good guy. I think he just did this very, very distastefully.
He's at a point now where he's been fucked over so many times by friends, family. You know some of the stuff off camera. Like, that's hard to let go of. Could you picture being around someone after something like that happened to you? Never, right? Like, never. So if he's able to, let out the window and like find things that make him happy, I think it should be exposed and talked about.
I also think that he's sensitive. I think that when people are upset, he's upset. So I think when he upsets people online, it bothers him. And I think he noticed this during the second turn of the video, and it's why I wound up liking the second half significantly more than I did the first half. So as he continues through the whole process, he winds up talking to some people from Jake Paul's past, previous 1010 members. Nick Crompton, that's what it was. Nick Crompton, I just learned about him. He was an old Team 10, I guess, manager, member, something of that nature. Kids were chanting his name outside the house, so that means something. We wound up going and interviewing these people to get an idea of what Jake Paul is like from the people closest to him. If you don't know, Jake's had a very, very public breakup with Alyssa Violet, a previous girlfriend of his that is also YouTube famous and started Team 10 with him. And if you don't know, he is also churned out just dozens of famous children through Team 10 and his YouTube career, as well as his brother Logan Paul, as they both recently fought in a boxing match against other YouTubers, Deji and KSI. If you weren't on that train a few months ago, that's the people we're talking about here. Jake has wound up being a huge proprietor on the space and has made his fair share of enemies in that process, I guess. So he went to talk to people who had left Team 10 maybe on bad terms. And I don't want to break down too much about the whole Nick Crompton thing because it got pretty extensive, but the most important things that you should get out of it is Nick Crompton thinks Jake Paul isn't that awful of a person. And the big important one, everything that they do, for the most part, at least the more extreme stuff, the giant monsters, pranks, a lot of the destruction, I'm sure he didn't get into exact specifics, but is utterly fake. Of course it is, guys. Everyone over the age of 20 knew this already, so I'm not explaining it to you. But if you weren't aware, everything Jake Paul does is set up to get famous on YouTube. They're going each day, and they're waking up, and they're going, what am I going to do today to get more viral, and doing it. They're just good at that. They're not actually pranking each other monstrously, which leads to a lot of other things. This is the most important point of the story, so if you've stayed on so far, keep going. There's a claim between Alyssa Violet, Jake's ex-girlfriend, and Jake Paul currently, where one of Jake's team members, I believe it's a manager of his, wound up at a bar with Alyssa Violet's new boyfriend, FaZe Banks.
Basically, the girl, your assistant.
Yeah.
Megan, yeah.
So she said she was at a club, FaZe Banks assaulted her, choked her or something, and then it turned into this whole thing because people thought you planned it and it was fake, and it was just like a fake assault. Right?
Yeah.
So I know what I think happened.
What you did this time around is so f***ed up. I'm beginning to believe that this isn't true.
And the claim by Jake, the manager that is in question, and Jake's new girlfriend, Erika Costell, is that the manager was hit by Banks in a bar that they both happened to be at, and a giant scene went down, and claimed basically monstrous things on the side of Banks being his ex's new boyfriend. Obviously, this casts huge skepticism on it, as it did for everyone's mind who was watching it. It cast ridiculous skepticism for obvious reasons, and I think Shane Dawson felt that going into a lot of this and realized that if everything's fake, was that fake? That was one of his quickest questions, which I was really happy to hear. That was the moment when I got on board with you, Shane, was when you started asking those hard questions. And it turns out that, at least according to Crompton at this point, that was real. That actually was legitimately going down to some extent. So he wound up later, we'll fast forward a bit, he wound up finally I think it was 6, it might have been the last bit of 5. Yeah, it was the last bit of 5 and all of 6. He wound up being with Jake Paul and actually going to him and asking to see his life and what he does in the Team 10 house. And what we saw there was pretty much that exactly what I had hoped Jake Paul was, I guess, in a way. He lives in a giant house and did monstrous things with Shane. He wound up taking him in this car, buggy, golf cart, four-wheeler type thing. They wound up going to Walmart at a point and shopping for camping supplies to set up their September summer. Apparently they work so often that they never really take a break from heavy YouTubing and everything else that it entails. I'm assuming it's a pretty hard thing to manage 24/7 like they do, and I don't think they've taken any kind of break in years. So this was their summer vacation, was kind of I guess not the story they were framing, but what was going on at the house the day that they came to do the interview. And they all ran to Walmart to get camping supplies and set up an adorable little camping set in the backyard and camped out like it was summer in September. It was kind of Erika Costell, Jake's new girlfriend's idea.
Sleeping bags, stuff to make a fire, volleyball court stuff, and a trampoline.
And a soccer
And
net.
snacks. And a volleyball ball and a soccer ball.
Well, through all that and through watching Jake interact with people around him, it was very quick and obvious that he wasn't a sociopath in any way, shape, or form. He actually treated most of his friends with great respect, did a lot of different kind of things for them that were adventurous and fun, and seemed to just really care about people.
But the drama was very real. Like Deji was like saying stuff about Erika and like my parents, and like he was just taking it like really deep.
I know when you were with Alyssa, you weren't satisfying her, bro. And I know back to this. I know back to this.
According to the therapist, who he did bring with him to make an opinion of her own and kind of, I guess, secretly diagnose him. They didn't know she was a therapist, so take that for what you will. Again, I think what Shane did was pretty dicey throughout the whole process. Not really about it, but I mean, I guess for the views, right? So he wound up in the Team 10 house with them at this point, and the most interesting thing I think that happened was, and this frames up the last 2 parts, guys. By the way, we're on part 6 out of 8. We still got 2 to go. I'm going to do a big one after the 8th one because my final point here will explain why. But the big thing that Jake Paul said was that the one thing he was scared to talk about, he really delves into his life and his feelings on YouTube and his new girlfriend and whether that was real, which it seems very real. She seems like a gem of a person for him.
Like I just hate talking about it and like bringing it up.
He said he was very hurt to talk about the Alyssa Violet situation, the breakup, and all the things that entailed that. They started Team 10 together. Their breakup was very public. After the whole manager FaZe Banks attacking her thing, Alyssa claimed Jake to be abusive to some degree. There's a previous video of Jake Paul spitting on Alyssa that's since been taken down from YouTube that people brought into question. That may have been part of jokes and things of that nature too. I mean, they did a lot of crazy things to each other for views and videos. That could have easily been part of it. We don't exactly know, but Part 7 has Alyssa Violet being interviewed in the preview for it. The assumption is that we're going to get Alyssa Violet's side of the story, where she claims that FaZe Banks, her current boyfriend, did not do anything to the manager in question, that Jake Paul is a liar, and that they made all this up to frame her and to do a hit job on her new boyfriend. And Jake Paul is going to claim that, obviously, I'm assuming in Part 8, he'll likely get back to Jake Paul. I'm not sure when, but I'm aware he's going to get to say his piece again, is likely to claim that the manager was attacked. As far as she said, she had bruises on her neck, which they pointed out in the documentary, as well as she left voice messages on Erika Costell's phone telling her what had happened, very sporadic, exasperated, freaking out. I haven't personally heard them, but Shane Dawson, as well as Jake Paul, as well as Erika Costell, all claims to have heard them. They didn't play them on the documentary for privacy reasons, but I believe Shane Dawson in this case.
What happened?
Wow.
So, in my experience with that, Megan was at the club that night. Like, that was totally true. And when she left, she sent me these 3 voice memos, like, freaking the fuck out. And I still have these voice memos, like, to this day. This guy, like, strangled her, like, hurt her, and now she's at her building, and she's genuinely scared to sleep. And
I heard these messages too.
All of them left feeling like Jake Paul was a great person, but it's very plain and simple. FaZe Banks did hit this girl, and Alyssa Violet and him are lying. Then she, specifically Alyssa Violet, is absolutely a sociopath. The pathway that this whole breakup has gone and the claims that she's made will expose her in this documentary if it's what I think it is. I'm not exactly sure who's telling the truth. I think it'll come out here. I think it'll be very easy to discern the way that Shane Dawson asks questions, the way he's framed this documentary. I think he's the right person to do it. I think Jake Paul calling him to do it and knowing where this would go makes me believe Jake more. I think I see Shane's ability to interview correctly and to ask the hard questions, ask them at the right times, and to emotionally connect with people. He's very empathic. He very much feels the emotions of the people he's talking to and connects with them. I think he'll be able to do that with both Jake, he's shown to do it so far, and Alyssa. I think that Alyssa is going to give her side of the story, and I think she's actually going to wind up being framed as the bad guy at the end of this. Or at least I think I'm going to feel she is. I may be wrong. We'll see how it ends. But if Jake's lying, if he's the one that is lying and he's gone through this whole process claiming that Alyssa's new boyfriend attacked his manager and he's just unwilling to back down on the lie.
But their defense was, oh, let's turn this on Jake, and like, of course, you know, like they just pull it out of thin air. Like, people are mad at us, like, let's make something up about Jake, and like everyone believed it because
Why not?
it just sucks.
And he's completely stuck on it, and there's proof and witnesses and everything that they need to prove FaZe Banks' innocence. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've thought Jake Paul for the first 3 or 4 parts I thought was a monster, exactly like Shane wanted. Parts 5 and 6, I thought he was a great guy. I don't know what's true. I'm really interested in the story. I've seen other little things about FaZe Banks, a few altercations him and Alyssa may have gotten in clubs and things of that nature. So I'm not sure exactly how involved he is in the whole situation. I mean, obviously he's the one that's been claimed to be the abuser in everything, but I'm not exactly sure how he fits super into the Jake Paul, Alyssa Violet, Shane Dawson interview situation. I don't know if he'll be involved, if he'll be interviewed, or what else. But I think this whole thing coming to a big fruition is going to, one, say a lot about YouTubers and their different mindsets and how it affects their brain to not only be that famous and influential, but to be seen by that many people, and to be constantly having to top yourself and to be constantly chasing that fame and goal. It's a very fleeting thing, and I think this examines the psychology and the psyche behind that much more than many things ever have. It's such a new field and something that people are really just paying attention to. I think it's really important that people check it out, even if you're not into Shane Dawson and Jake Paul and all of them. I'm absolutely too old to be watching any of them, and this is the first time I've really got into their stories and their backgrounds. You need to check them out. It's absolutely worth watching. Shane does a great job. I really liked it. I think I'm going to say that Jake Paul is not a sociopath in any way, and that Alyssa Violet is probably a monster in this whole situation, but we will find out.
Let him speak his truth, and if people don't want to believe it, that's fine, and he wants to, even though he's like really scared. I'm going to say if I believe it or not, which is, I don't know if I should. Fuck it. I
think you should. 'Cause, like we talked about, I thought he was a bad person because of what people said was true. And so I think that if he's open to it, you can give him the ability to share the truth. In all honesty, even though he stays quiet just because he feels like it's not worth it, like people are going to come back with like 100 other fights to start and drama to stir up. This gives him the one opportunity to speak his truth and say it. I think he really wants to.
If you guys haven't gone and checked out my podcast yet, by the way, anchor.fm/podcasting. It's very simple. That is my local channel. You can also find me on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Podcasts, and wherever else you listen to your podcast, because Anchor shares it everywhere, which is awesome. And if you haven't checked out my Instagram channel and my Beyond Beanie discount code, you absolutely should. Why Controversy 25 to get 25% off, not dollars, percent off any beanie or bracelet that you buy. Inside these beanies, guys, it's beautiful. There is a signed little signature of whoever stitched the beanie together. They show you who made your beanie. It goes to a good cause. Please check out their website at beyondbeanie.com.
I'd probably just like chill now, maybe go get food.
We're gonna make summer in the backyard.
We should go to Walmart and get tents.
That sounds fun.
But
Wait, I want to go to Walmart with Jake Paul.
let's go.
Or on my Instagram page at Young Controversy. And this is Devin Roberts for the night, guys. I had a really good time talking with you and breaking this down. Sorry I couldn't get more deep into it, but I am going to do a later breakdown on this in the week once we get parts 7 and 8. Shane Dawson has changed up his schedule so many times at this point that I'm not going to promise anything. But I did say I'd release this video on Saturday, guys. It is Saturday, and I am so excited to start this YouTube channel. For all 2 of you that watched this the first day, congratulations for being here. And for everyone else who is going back to watch this, welcome to my first video and to Young Controversy. This is Devin Roberts on the first one, signing off. Peace.
I was like, wow, this is like the dude who is dating my ex-girlfriend. Like, part of me is like, yeah, like let's like expose this and like make him look bad.
It's a revolution.